So how much of a calorie deficit is necessary? It really depends on your goals. A nice good place to start is somewhere between the 300 and 500 calorie range. And in saying that, I want to emphasize that the difference between a 300 calorie deficit and 500 calorie deficit is pretty difficult to measure. Unless you are weighing out every single gram of your food to the T every single day, never taking an extra bite of anything, cooking all of your own food, never eating out, there's going to be some variation. Calories are very difficult to track, and I think this happens to a lot of people. So I just like to say a nice 500 calories is a good place to be. That is a big enough gap to make a difference. It's a big enough gap to know that you're actually in enough of a deficit. Going from a 100 calorie deficit to 200 calorie deficit, and then taking a step to 300 and then taking a step to 400, I can tell you that that's almost an immeasurable amount. I mean, we're talking about like half a bite, one bite of food, sometimes it is the difference. And again, unless you're specifically measuring every tiny little detail, you're going to have some variation in there anyways. And depending on who's listening to this, if you're very obese, you have a lot of extra body weight, like extra body fat that's stored, you can definitely raise that calorie deficit to higher and you will lose weight faster. There's no doubt about that. But 500 calorie deficit is a nice, good place to be. If you don't need to lose very much weight, just start with that. And then you can always adjust, because maybe you have misrepresented your own calorie needs, which is kind of what we're going to talk about next. There's a lot of factors that influence your calorie needs, from age, your total body weight, how much muscle mass you have now, your total activity levels, what you do for work, what you like to do in your spare time. All that stuff matters a lot. There's online calculators that you can use to put in all these types of information. If you've never gotten a DEXA scan before, that's one thing you can definitely do. Hit up my guy Mike over at Live Lean RX Houston. That will give you an exact measurement of how much muscle mass you have, how much body fat you have, because someone at 200 pounds and 10% body fat is a lot different than 200 pounds, 20% body fat. These are two totally different body compositions that require a different amount of calories. So, if you just know your weight and your height, you can definitely use an online calculator to make a nice guess. You can find someone like myself, a nutrition coach, that can take this information as well as what I know about you as an individual and make a very educated guess based upon what I know about you and my past, other clients that I've worked with, the experiments that I've done with myself. That's a good way to do it. But the best way, and usually what I recommend people do anyways, if you're unsure and you just have no idea where to start, is to track your intake. If you track your food for one full week, 7 days straight, everything you take in, you're using a food scale, eating your normal amount, calculate the calories that you're taking in. And if you're not gaining or losing weight, you can bet that is about what we would consider your maintenance. And if we go back to what we talked about earlier, your maintenance is your midpoint, right? That's where you stay, right? Maintenance is calories in, calories out are the same. So if you track your food and you come to a determination that you eat 2,700 calories. Some days you eat 2,900, some days you eat 25. You do the math, you average it out, you track for 7 days, get the total calories, divide by 7, that's your total. Because, Mike over Live Lean, to kind of shout him out again, he told me one time that, your body works in averages. So if you overeat one day, undereat another day, it's going to average itself out right in the middle, and that's going to be your maintenance. And so then what you can do is subtract the deficit that you want. And we talked about earlier that 500 calories is a pretty good place for most people to start. So let's say I tracked my calories for 7 days. It's a little higher some days, it's a little lower other days. But when I do my average, it comes out to 2,700. All right, I want to lose some weight. I'm not real sure where to start. I'm going to go ahead and go with 500. That means I should be eating 2,200 calories per day. Do that for at least 2 weeks and see what happens, and actually be consistent with it. I hate to have to say this, but the biggest thing is that I often see people do this. They'll track their food. They'll get this average. They'll get started, but they can't actually eat 2,200 for long enough, like consistently enough to actually make a difference. Because here's what happens. This is what I want to make sure it doesn't happen to you. So that's why I'm bringing this up. You do pretty good Monday through Friday. You're at your 2,200. Saturday comes, guys call you up, a couple beers, grab some pizza, burger, you eat out or whatever. And I'm just using extreme examples, but it really can be anything, because anytime you're eating out, you never know how much you're taking in, right? Unless you get very specific, with the restaurant, with the chef, which we can talk about. But a couple drinks in, that rarely happens, right? So let's say you had your 2,200 all week, Monday through Friday. Saturday comes, guys, it's very easy to get in 4,000 or 5,000. I know that sounds crazy, but it is very easy to get in 4,000 or 5,000 calories at one time. When you're out with your friends, you're snacking, appetizers, grazing here and there. Then the entree comes, a little dessert. Dude, you're at $5,000 before you know it. And if you average that out over the whole week, you're at your 2,700. And I don't do math on the fly, but if I were to guess 2,200 all week, 5,000, you actually might have even gone over 2,700 as your average, right? So the point is that one day, one meal can mess this thing up, right? We need to maintain that deficit over long periods of time, because remember, hours turn into days, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months. You have to maintain your calorie deficit for days, weeks, months consistently to actually get yourself moving in the right direction, right? So how do we do that though? In simple ways. Prioritize eating whole foods. Eating whole foods and eating at home. That's the number one way. Because if you do that, you're going to be shocked at how much less total food you actually consume. Because that one Saturday meal that I'm talking about, and I don't know about you, I'm not judging anyone listening to this, but that happens often a couple of times a week. And it's because the calorie density of all the foods that we're surrounded by. We were kind of talking about this before with Dr. Chapa, the environment that we're in, it begs us to overeat. It begs us to drink our calories, not only from alcohol, but from juices and soda and all kinds of different things. So we have to avoid those things. By eating whole foods, we focus on the fiber, we focus on the protein. Our total calorie intake will be less because we get full easier from those whole foods, avoiding fast foods, avoiding processed foods, avoiding fried foods that are just calorie filled. It's going to help us maintain that calorie deficit.